Okay, first off, I'd like to thank everybody that came. That really shows a lot about your character, how much you care about your home country, and I'd really just like you guys to give a round of applause for yourselves right now. Secondly, to all my Muslim brothers and sisters, Eid Mubarak. I know that shows a lot about your character, self-discipline, self-control. Another thing, yesterday in Ethiopia, while Muslims were protesting for their rights, for their freedom of speech, they were approached by the government with police officers, and there was use of police brutality, and it was very brutal. As Gashbatru mentioned earlier, a pregnant woman was murdered, and it was very traumatizing. So let's have a moment of silence and respect for those that were hurt. Thank you. Eskinder Nega is an exceptional Ethiopian journalist and outspoken civil rights human activist. On June 27, 2012, he and 23 other Ethiopian journalists were found guilty of terrorist charges. He is now serving an 18-year sentence for writing an online article critical of the government's immoral stance at silencing political opposition. The following is an excerpt he wrote from a letter he wrote on July 25, 2013 from his prison. I am jailed with around 200 other inmates in a wide hall that looks like a warehouse. For all of us, there are only 3 toilets. Most of the inmates sleep on the floor, which has never been swept. About 1,000 prisoners share the small open space here at Kalidi Prison. One can guess our fate if a communicable disease were to break out. I was arrested in September 2011 and detained for 9 months before I was found guilty in June 2012 under Ethiopia's overly broad anti-terrorism proclamation, which ostensibly covers the planning, preparation, conspiracy, incitement, and attempt of terrorist acts. In reality, the law has just been used as a pretext to detain journalists who criticize the government. Last July, I was sentenced to 18 years in prison. I've never conspired to overthrow the government. All I did was report on the Arab Spring and suggest that something similar might happen in Ethiopia if the authoritarian regime did not reform. The state's main evidence against me was a YouTube video of me saying this at a public meeting. I also dared to question the government's ludicrous claim that jailed journalists were terrorists. Under the previous regime of Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, I was detained. So was my wife, Sarkad Mufasa. She gave birth to our son in prison in 2005. She was released in 2007. Our newspapers were shut down under laws that claimed to fight terrorism, but really just muzzled the press. Not much has changed since our last dictator, Mr. Meles, died last August. There have been no major policy changes. The draconian press and anti-terrorism laws are still there. There has been no improvement when it comes to press freedom. With a population fast approaching 100 million, Ethiopia, unlike Somalia, is simply too big to ignore, contained within America's regional proxies. As Ethiopia goes, so goes the whole Horn of Africa, a region where instability can have major security and humanitarian implications for the United States and Europe. Al-Qaeda has a presence here, and hundreds of millions of aid dollars flow into the region while millions of immigrants flow out. Here in the Ethiopian Gulag, this alone is reason enough to pay homage to the land of the brave. Now, I personally am not as articulate or influential as this hero, but growing up in America, my generation has not been exposed to this level of governmental corruption. We've never had to worry about what we said about the current president or party in power. We do not know what it is like to demand democracy. It has always been given to us. It has been by the sweat of our parents' brows that Ethiopia has been kept from falling into complete chaos. The Habsha youth have always played the role of spectators during this volatile time, merely witnessing the corruption taking place in their home country, but never acting on it. Here are our people, muzzled by the hands of the same government claiming to protect them, and yet they still protest and fight every day for the right to voice their opinions, facing military opposition and deadly consequences. Here we are, with not only the capability, but the right to say whatever we please, with no government interference, but choose not to. We remain silent about the crimes against humanity taking place in our home, against our people. To the youth, make no mistake, this is the beginning of a long and taxing battle. One that will require patience and commitment. One that will truly test your loyalty to your country. There was a segment on CNN on the downfall of Libya's tyrannical dictatorship of Muammar Gaddafi and the People's Revolution, and they interviewed one of the rebel leaders. When asked what was the most valuable tool that helped you win the revolution, rather than saying weapons, manpower, or morale, he responded by saying, Twitter. Social networking as a whole played a huge role in the downfall of an oppressive regime in Libya. So I ask you, why can't the same be done for Ethiopia? Begin to view social networking sites such as Twitter and Facebook, not just as a form of entertainment, but as a platform to raise awareness of our people's struggle and their plight. With today's technology, we have the power to speak to hundreds, even thousands of individuals with the click of a button. There is no excuse as to why this cause shouldn't be trending on Twitter every day. The following is a quote from His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, which effectively expresses the responsibility of the American people at a time like this. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most that has made it possible for evil to triumph. The youth's silence and inaction has played a role in the extended existence of this regime. However, starting today, our ignorance will no longer be an excuse. Starting today, we refuse to stand idly by as we witness the implosion of our home country by the hands of its own government. Starting today, both young and old will stand in solidarity against this tyrannical regime. Starting today, we make it evident to this regime that following this older generation's war against their oppression comes a new wave of young activists and humanitarians who have effectively weaponized their knowledge for the specific purpose of bringing peace and democracy within Ethiopian borders and never letting it go again. Starting today, we, the Ethiopian community as a whole, young or old, Christian or Muslim, native-born or foreign-born, we look this oppressive regime in the eyes with complete and unwavering defiance and say, respect existence or expect resistance. Thank you.
Standing ovation.